In my next video, I'm going to go more in depth of what I think changes should be, since some of these explanations can easily take 5 or more minutes per epic. Here's a real hot take. I think just about every single epic in the game is problematic in some way, shape, or form. I'd imagine a lot of people are going to disagree initially with what I believe should be changed regarding epics. Alright, so let's talk about the epic system as a whole. This is going to be a continuation of my epic system problem, so if you haven't yet, I would highly recommend watching that video first. By the way, as a heads up, I am going to be rambling quite often, but I will leave timestamps throughout the video. If you're completely brain rot already, you've already put me into second monitor, you're already reading the YouTube comments, yeah, I see you doing that, come on now. I would ask that you at least go to this timestamp where I talk about the most overpowered epics, as I think they are the biggest problems with Pirates combat. This video is also not meant to be a, hey, this is what I want, add it into the game KI. It is more so a grandiose deep dive into the individual epic talents themselves. How it used to be, how it changed, my problems, and then some ideas for solutions. Of course, these are my personal opinions, and I'm not demanding anything that I say be instantly implemented into the game. I'm also going to make a tier list of at least the relevant epics, since some are just completely dead in terms of playability, but I will also give an explanation as to why they're in their current state, as well as some possible solutions. Some of the things I've heard others say in defense of changing epics is, well, Arc 2 is hard, so we need OP things in the game. Now, I won't deny Arc 2 is difficult, it absolutely is for the average player, and I literally made a video about it, but I think that both Arc 2 and the epic system should simultaneously get changed. Only changing one either makes the gameplay extremely easy or extremely hard to play through. This goes into another issue I hear, which is that Miracle Mitch is really annoying because he's so expensive, and having overpowered stuff in the game is good because you don't have to worry about losing companions anymore. Again, 2 wrongs don't make a right. I think Miracle Mitch needs to be changed for the betterment of the players. Having it be so you don't spend half of your max gold when you lose one fight is a great thing. But, again, both epic talents and Miracle Mitch need to be changed. So, my problem with the epic system is that everybody has been given more access to epics. So let's use an example. All the gear that I'm using on my Witch Doctor gives an epic, gives an epic. This gives an epic. My pet gives 4 epics. My wand gives 2 epics. My totem, an epic. Cerberus collar, 3 epics. My ring, 3 epics. Every piece of gear now gives epics. On top of that, let's look at companions, for example. Let's look at some like El Toro, right? 3, 5, 7, 10 epics total given to him. Bat Masterson, 1, 3, 4, 8, 10 epics himself. For those who may not know, originally, companions used to only have 4 epics total. So let's look at someone such as Subudai. So right now, Subudai has 3, 5, 8 total epics given to him. Originally, when you recruited Subudai, you got 1, which was the Vengeance Strike when you first recruit him at level 1. At his first promotion at level 13, he gains 2 extra epics. And then at his second promotion at level 46, he gains another epic. So in total, he would have had 4 epics. That's it. They changed this in August 2015, where all companions gain an extra epic starting at level 15 in increments of 20. So 35, 55, and now with this Trianon update, at level 75, every companion gains an extra epic. So now, instead of 4, he gains 4 extras, and now he has 8. Let's look at Fan Flanders. Originally, she had 4, 1, 3, 5, 7, and 8 now herself. You combine this with rework, so let's look at somebody, I already looked at El Toro for an example, but let's look at Sarah Steele. Originally, she had 8 as well, such as the same as Fan Flanders. Now, 3, 7, 9, and 10 epics herself. This all sounds great, and I'm not here to refute that. My problem is that the epic system itself was designed around being hard to achieve epic talents. The strength of something such as, let's say, Hold the Line 3, is so overpowered and so valuable because it was originally, this is another thing about epics, it only was at rank 3. This is why a lot of companions such as Ratbeard or Subudai can only get to a rank 3 epic, because that was originally the cap. The only reason why someone such as Sarah Steele can get to rank 4, Riposte, or even rank 5, I don't have it on this because of this power, is they get reworked. Nowadays, with all of the gear that you can obtain, with a pet, secret trainers, all these types of things, you can now gain multiple rank 5 epics. So on my Witch Doctor, I have Mojo Echo 5, I have Radiant Spell 5, and I have Mojo Rising 5. This is kind of ridiculous. And I don't think removing said epics from companions or pirate captain gear is the solution either. I think having a large amount of epics is good to drive build diversity. My main issue is that the epics themselves, who were just good by themselves, let's look at Hold the Line 3, Vengeance Strike 3, Riposte 3, they have become overpowered now because you can combine so many different epics together, and because some of these epics are so easy to obtain now, I just think it's created so much overall unenjoyment of the game. And again, it's not just me that's saying this. So what I think needs to happen is that the epics that are overpowered need to be tuned down, and the vast amount of trash epics need to be buffed up so that instead of the same handful of epics being recycled onto new reworked companions and also new types of gear, as we're going to get the next episode coming soon, level 80 gear most likely, we can have actual companion diversity and actual player archetype diversity with a vast amount of epics instead of the same 10 to 15 to 20 epics that keep getting reused for every piece of gear. Okay, with all that out the way, let's get into the video. Alright, so now I'm going to rank a handful of epics. You might have noticed that there's not many epics here that I'm actually grading, and that's because I think a good amount of epics in this game are completely worthless, but I did pick out a few examples as a template to explain why these current epics suck. I'm grading these epics based on a few things. The overall strength of it, in other words, how much damage does the epic do, the utility it provides, and the proc rate, which in other words means how difficult is the epic to actually trigger in combat. Is it consistent? Is it inconsistent? Does it require setup? Things like that. For the tiers, what you need to know, D tier basically means it is completely unviable and you almost never see someone utilize epics here. C tier means that it has some niche use, but overall it's not that great. B tier means it has its uses, but one general crutch that prevents it from being higher. A tier is where I want epics to be at. If you are designing combat for really any game, ideally you'd want every playstyle to be at A tier. A tier means it is generally used by most players, it is strong, but has counterplay. A tier epics have a lot of upside, but some downsides. Being able to understand which epics you should utilize given your specific fight is what should separate a good player from a bad one. S tier means that it is used and desired by almost everyone. It is stronger than A tier epics while simultaneously having less weaknesses. Sometimes this is a good thing because certain playstyles can be inherently fun, and I will give an example of one later on in the video, but generally speaking, they need to be tweaked just a little bit. And finally, Z tier epics. A Z tier epic is, in my opinion, a broken epic. And when I mean broken, I mean it breaks the combat system, giving such a huge advantage to whoever utilizes these epics. All epics that I'm going to rank here, they need to be nerfed. Alright, the first epic is going to be Doomspell. Doomspell is probably the worst epic in the entire game. The only companion that has Doomspell is Kakarius. I've never seen a single person utilize Doomspell on him. For those who don't know what Doomspell is, it is the Witch Doctor variation of flanking. There are multiple problems with Doomspell. 1, it doesn't do any damage. 2, it's very difficult to proc, especially on the range classes, and there's just so many more options that you can choose to offer more utility or more damage. Now I do think all the flanking epics themselves are bad, so Crossfire and flanking itself, they're all bad, but I would say Doomspell and also Crossfire are probably the two worst because at least with flanking you are melee, so you can reposition to get a flank and also your normal attack off, but with Witch Doctors and Musketeers, they can't really do that because they're not supposed to move and attack, they just stationary and they attack. What I think that they should do for all of them, and I'll talk about this more with flanking, is that they should buff up the damage, and then you can start making a more melee Witch Doctor build, and specifically a melee Witch Doctor companion, and I have the perfect option for one, Dr. No, or some people call him as Dr. Drip. You can make him a melee Witch Doctor, rework him that way, and then he can utilize Doomspell up to rank 5 with a buffed damage output of flanking 5 itself. And of course, I'm not going to rank some of these other epics because they're just completely worthless, but if you want to know some other examples of what a D tier epic would be, Retribution is another example of it. It's the Witch Doctor variation of Vengeance Strike. Crossfire is another example. The problem with these types of epics is that they're just so poorly utilized. They don't provide any damage, they don't provide any utility, and of course, because they're on ranged classes are not designed to be in a melee situation, or in Retribution's case, it only procs on Witch Doctors, which is almost never who you're going to be fighting, so it is just never used. For a C tier epic, the first one that I'm going to talk about is Cheapshot. Now, I think Cheapshot is one of the most well-designed epics in the entire game. I actually really like it. My problem is that Cheapshot just does no damage and simultaneously requiring you to be in a very specific position against the enemy for it to be able to proc. If we're going to look at something such as, let's look at, Relentless, right? The reason why Relentless is so much better is because it's so much easier to proc, and it also does more damage. I think for Cheapshot, the damage all around should be a little bit higher, maybe to up to a normal hit, because I think right now it's about 50% of your weapon power. I think you should just be hitting the normal 100%, similar to how Relentless is, and then let's say at rank 3, the damage goes up even higher, and then for rank 5 in particular, it should be a 100% immobilization if the attack lands. Right now, I think it's only 50%, which is just kind of ridiculous. One of the coolest companions that Dom has created is Apollonia Tagliente, and for those who don't know who that is, that's the swashbuckler companion from the Valencia pack. Her identity is meant to be a pseudo-frontliner. She is the swashbuckler variation of a frontliner, and the way that she works is that she has really high dodge with Cheapshot 5, so her entire gimmick is to walk into the enemy fray herself and have the enemies focus her first because she has really high dodge, so if they want to run away and go to the rest of your team, the more squishier units like your Musketeers and your Witch Doctors, they have to go through her first. She procs the Cheapshot, they proc the, let's say, Vengeance Strike or something like that. If she hits the Cheapshot 5, they get immobilized, so they have to focus her first. This is really cool. I love the design. Here's the problem. Cheapshot doesn't do anything, it doesn't proc very often, and of course it doesn't do any damage. So I would argue she's probably the least desired companion in the Valencia pack.
Personally, this is the weakest companion from the pack, and unless this companion is mainly used for PvP, I don't really recommend using this companion.
And it's not even her fault, it's just the epics that she has are not good. The next epic I want to talk about is, flanking. Similarly to Doomspell, flanking is really bad in the current state it's in, and suffers from the same problem as Cheapshot. The setup takes a little bit more effort than something like Relentless, Repel Borders, Overwatch, and is inconsistent, while also doing too little damage to compensate. With flanking in particular, I have two options, and then you can also bring this into Crossfire as well as Doomspell as well. The first, and I think is the easier option, is that at every preceding rank of Crossfire, Doomspell, and flanking, you do more damage. So let's say maybe at rank 1, you do the current damage, which I believe is 50% of your weapon power. Rank 2, it should do 100% of your weapon power, which in other words is the same damage as a Relentless or a Bladestorm. Rank 3 can be 150% of your weapon power. Rank 4 can be twice your weapon power, and then maybe even at rank 5 can be 3 times your weapon power, which, to put into perspective, let's say you have a weapon that does 300 damage, that means you're going to be doing around 900 damage if you land a flank properly, assuming you have rank 5 of flanking. The second way, which I think is a little bit more interesting, but I think requires a little bit more tech time, is I think rank 1 through 3 can be as it is, as I've previously just stated, but rank 4 and rank 5 could be a little bit different. One of my problems with flanking is that I think the chains are just objectively stronger, and the only value that flanking can provide is that it can be an extra attack to start chains. But I think that the point of flanking is to build into the swashbuckler archetype of one-shotting everybody. So I think, let's say for higher ranks of flanking, instead of doing the extra attack, you put somebody into a flanking position. If you put somebody into a flanking position, you mark them, which means that you do bonus damage to them for only your next attack. I think that would be really cool, because then on your next attack, let's say you're hidden and you want to use an assassin strike on the enemy, because you flank them, you mark them, and now you do even more damage than what you're originally supposed to do. which can then push Swashbucklers back into the pure stabby style instead of the hybrid chain brain boring I've played this against with every other class style. The last C tier I want to talk about for this video is... where is it at? Oh, here it is. Intuition. For those who don't know, Intuition is the Witch Doctor variation of First Strike, and the problem that Intuition has is the same problem that Retribution has, which is the same problem that Doomspell has, and it's also the same problem as something such as Return Fire, which is the ranged version of Riposte. The problem with all of these types of epics is that they don't have a wide range of targets to proc from. First Strike works well because First Strike can be used on Privateers, it can be used on Buccaneers, and it can be used on Swashbucklers. Intuition doesn't work because it only works on Witch Doctors. So how do you fix this? The idea that I have, which is more so a pitch, I don't know how well it's going to work, but at rank 3, and let's say higher than rank 3, these epics should proc on every single class. So let's say you have Retribution and a Buccaneer hits you, you would proc Retribution onto the Buccaneer even if they're not using a staffy weapon, because you have rank 3 of Retribution, giving these epics more versatility. And then from there, maybe the Buccaneer can use Vengeance Strike, or maybe it can't. I don't know how that would work, but that's kind of my pitch. Okay, so now let's talk about some B tiers. B tier means that overall it's fine, but there's usually one main crutch that doesn't make it as viable as something that will be classified as an A tier. The first one I want to talk about is Ambush. For those who don't know, Ambush is the level 75 epic that Swashbucklers gain from the Trianon update. The way it works is that if you land a flanking hit on an enemy, then you would be hidden. Cool design. The problem is that not necessarily Ambush itself, it's just that flanking is so bad. So if flanking were to get better, then Ambush would probably be an A tier epic. The other one that I want to talk about is Quick Draw. It's a little bit better than Intuition and Retribution and things like that, but it still suffers from the same problem as the ones I've just previously mentioned with Intuition. So the solution, I think, should be the same as what I stated previously, rank 3 and higher, or maybe even just at rank 5, because Musketeers can get it for free at rank 3 from their trainer. It should proc on every class. Okay, now we're in the A tiers. As I stated earlier, in a perfect game, A tier is where you want every epic to be at. A tier means it has clear strengths, it has a good amount of strengths, but it also has weaknesses. It also has some counterplay. The first epic that I want to bring up is going to be Vengeance Strike. Vengeance Strike is great. I don't have many problems with it. My only issue is I think Vengeance Strike 3 in particular is way too valuable. Getting a stun is so good in Pirate's combat system. Being able to stop the enemy from chaining or even using their power, very, very useful. The problem is that the rank 4 and then the rank 5 variations of Vengeance Strike don't provide much. So what I think is that the stun should be changed from the rank 3 variation over to the rank 5 variation. You might say, well, okay, then that's great, but then rank 3 is really bad. And I will agree with you. What I think should happen is that rank 3 and rank 4 should do something else than the utility of rank 5. Rank 3 can do more damage than it currently does, which I believe is 100% of your weapon power. So rank 3 can do, let's say, 150% of your weapon power, and then rank 4 can do 200% of your weapon power. Rank 5, because it has the stun associated with it now, and here's what I think they should start doing with more rank 4 and rank 5 epics, is that they should be, let's say the rank 4 does more damage, and then the rank 5 provides utility. As I stated before, rank 4 does 200% of the damage. Rank 5, let's bring it back to 100%. So let's lower the damage of rank 5, but we give it the stun. What I think that this will do is it opens up the door for diversity. Let's say for a companion you just want to have more damage, you would only go to Vengeance Strike 4. Let's say for a different companion you want to have more utility, you would put it to Vengeance Strike 5. You give agency specifically only to the player. And I think that would be fantastic. A lot of people would really, really like that. I'm going to use this formula for a couple different other A tier epics. So let's use Hold the Line and specifically, Repel Borders 3. I think both are fine. I think both are great in terms of utility. My only problem is that I think the rank 3 variations are way too good. The same thing as Vengeance Strike. Again, the reason for this, I said this earlier in the video, is that epics were designed around being hard to achieve epic talents. and originally, rank 3 was the highest tier. Now that it is so much easier to achieve epic talents, as well as it being up to rank 5, I think the rank 3 variations need to be weaker. Hold the line 3 should only be a minus 25% dodge, so cut it in half. Same thing for Repel borders, minus 25% accuracy, cut that in half. Because I want to make rank 4 more valuable, the minus 50% reductions, instead of rank 3, it should be at rank 4. So hold the line 3 does minus 25% dodge, rank 4 does minus 50% dodge. Hold the line 3 I don't have a problem with, and then for Repel borders 5, I'm going to talk about it a little bit later. Actually, I'm going to talk about it a little later when I get to Overwatch and Ready Spell, because you may not be surprised at where I put those epics. Another epic I want to bring up is Riposte. Same thing, rank 1, rank 2, I don't have a problem with. I think the rank 3 variation Riposte is way too good, and then the rank 4 and rank 5 don't do anything. I think rank 3 dodge increase should be moved to rank 4, and instead rank 3 should do more damage. Rank 4 does more damage, and then it gives you the 15 flat dodge that it currently does, and then at rank 5 there's two options that I have. And I haven't really decided which one I like more, they're just both pitches. Rank 5, the first thing is it can either give you 15% dodge each time it procs, which again for people who don't know, at Riposte rank 3, 4, and 5 it only gives you 15 flat dodge. So rank 5 can give you 15% dodge each time it procs, which will be better than the current rank 3 variation. You'll give a lot more dodge as a result. The second option, and this is one I think is really cool, it can also mark enemies so that you can start doing more damage with your Riposte chains. I haven't really decided which one's better, but I think both are solid. Last one I want to talk about for A tier is going to be First Strike. By the way, I'm not grading these in between tiers. I don't really care to do that. It's more so just explaining what is an A tier epic, what's a B tier, what's a Z tier, so on and so forth. Pretty much same premise as the other A tiers. Rank 1, rank 2, rank 3, no problem. I think they're all good. Rank 4, rank 5, they're pretty bad. Rank 4 should do a lot more damage. So right now I think it's about 66 of your weapon power for First Strike. I think it should be 150% of your weapon power. And then at rank 5, I was thinking about how First Strike can provide utility, and I think it can lower weapon power each time it procs onto the enemy. Anywhere from 5 to 10% reduction per proc for Swashbucklers, and because Swashbuckler is the main class I can get rank 5 of First Strike, it gives them more durability against a lot of the Arc 2 enemies, especially because a lot of these Arc 2 enemies have been given guaranteed damage through some powers. They have charges now, they have strikes now, they have like gambits of steel now. So being able to proc a First Strike 5 and lowering their damage, I think will help the survivability of Swashbucklers a lot more. Now onto the S tiers. S tier means it is really good. You can pretty much play it every single time from the moment you start getting it, from the moment you end the game. That has fewer weaknesses than A tiers. Generally, if you make it to this tier, then you start needing to be looked at and maybe nerfed just a little bit. The first one I'm going to put here is Relentless. And when I'm talking about Relentless, I also mean Burst Fire as well as Mojo Echo. These all kind of just fit into the same category. And to make it simple, I'm going to call these the chaining epics from now on. These chaining epics, they've been good since the beginning of the game. I would probably say it's kind of where the game is balanced around, or I guess where it's supposed to be balanced around. And overall, I don't have a problem with it being really good because most people do like chaining. My first problem with these chaining epics is that the rank 1 and the rank 2 variations are very good, but then the rank 3, 4, and 5 variations provide very little. So I think power should be siphoned away from the rank 1 and the rank 2 variations and into the 3, 4, and 5 variations. Now, some people might say that's going to make the game a lot harder for the lower levels. Again, I explained this earlier, the game was balanced around having very few epics being given to you and your companions. So yeah, I mean, you're going to have more epics, but the strengths at the rank 1 and rank 2 variations will be weaker, so it might seem like it's going to be harder, but you will be fine. I promise. All ranks of Relentless currently do 100% of your weapon power. I think the rank 1 and the rank 2 variations should do 50% and 75% of your weapon power respectively. The rank 3 variation should do 100% of your weapon power, so it brings it back to where it originally was. The rank 4 variation should do 150% of your weapon power, and then the rank 5 variation should do 200% of your weapon power. The second problem with chaining epics is how reliable they actually are. Something such as First Strike is definitely useful, but it still has drawbacks such as not being able to proc on Musketeers or Witch Doctors. Chaining epics, on the other hand, proc from so many powers, right? It procs from Vengeance Strike, it procs from Repel Borders, it procs from Riposte, it procs from Flanking, Cheapshot, it procs from even powers, right? Charges, Assassin Strikes, so many different ways to do it. Overwatch, Ready Spell, right? All of these different ones, Bladestorm. The problem I have with this is that this is what makes people default to hybrid styles. And get ready for this first rant. I'm going to be ranting about hybrid for a little bit. Hybrid has essentially become the norm for every playstyle. Swashbuckler, hybrid shooty stabby. Privateer, hybrid shooty staffy. Witch Doctor, I mean, although pure staffy is definitely strong, you can absolutely just play the hybrid shooty staffy problem itself. My problem with this is that none of these classes are designed to be chainers. Musketeer and Buccaneer I'm fine with, but Swashbuckler is supposed to hide and do burst damage. Privateers are supposed to do supportive utility. Witch Doctors are supposed to cast spells. I don't like how the solution to these classes, maybe originally they necessarily weren't as good as chaining, but the solution is instead of buffing their actual capabilities of their classes to give them more of an actual identity, the solution is to simply make them as chainers. Yeah, it does make them more effective, but my question is, what's the difference between playing a chaining shooty staffy Privy from a chaining shooty staffy Witch Doctor or a chaining shooty staffy Musketeer? A few powers? That's it? But the reason hybrid is so prevalent is because chains do so much damage and it's so reliable. People may disagree with me on this one, but I think you either need to lower the weapon power of hybrid weapons altogether. I know, like, yeah, they do a little bit less damage than the pure styles, but it's not enough to make a big deal. I'm talking like cutting it in half. Or you can implement a stab system, kind of like how Pokemon has it, where let's say you're a Buccaneer, if you use a charge with specifically a smashy slashy weapon, you do bonus damage, or let's say if you're a Swashbuckler and you use an Assassin Strike, if you use it with a pure stabby weapon, it will do bonus damage. Because right now, outside of personal preference, there's no objective reason to play pure styles over hybrid. Again, some people might say this is going to be too much and that they won't be able to chain anymore, and my rebuttal to that is, that's a bad thing? I think you should have more ways of playing the game rather than just chaining on everybody, because, and I'll talk about this more when I get to the Z tiers, you can't really buff a lot of these powers right here, because they're going to have to be competing with things such as Relentless, Bladestorm, or Overwatch. To keep everything more balanced and fair and for every epic to have its place, well, you have to nerf some things or else you're going to overbuff weak epics to put them on par with the S and Z tiers, which will cause its own problems, and I don't think that this is that big of a nerf either. I think this is going to make it so it's a little bit more fair, so not every single low level who plays through the game is going to pick a Relentless companion, a Bladestorm on every companion that they recruit. Why does everything have to have Relentless? Why does everything have to have Bladestorm? I think it's really stupid. Okay, anyways, rant done. The other epic that I want to add to this list, I actually don't have it, I don't have it on this list, but we'll just say it's going to be here. It'll be Elusive. Great epic, very strong, very valuable. My first issue with Elusive is I think the rank 4 and the rank 5 variations are pretty underwhelming. I think instead of an enormous amount of dodge, rank 4 and rank 5 should provide something such as damage reduction. The other problem with Elusive, I'll talk about this one more when I get to Turn the Tide, just keep in mind that I'm going to talk about it at some point. Alright, and finally, the Z tiers. So this is where I'm going to put my timestamp. An epic that is placed in this tier, I would consider to be broken, as in it actually breaks the combat system. These are the epics that I think need to be changed the most because they're going to continuously cause more and more problems as we add future updates into Pirate101. The first two, if you watch my videos, you know where I'm going to be putting these ones. Yeah, Ready Spell, Overwatch, right there. I'm going to sound like a broken record, but knockback epics should never be given to players. I don't have a problem giving them to enemies, like for example, Rook has an epic called Overprotection, where if you walk up to him, he will push you back. That's fine, because it's an AI and specifically it's a very specific boss that has it. It's also a really stupid thing, like I don't know why in Zigzag and in Trianon you gave regular Armada Musketeers Overwatch 5. It's really overpowered, I don't really get it. I don't think a player should have it because it gives them way too much agency. It's essentially giving the player boss cheats like in Wizard 101. Musketeers and Witch Doctors, which are both classes that are supposed to be weak when the enemy can close the gap, giving them a way to indefinitely hold a space between them and the melee enemy is ridiculous. They don't need frontliners anymore, which is supposed to be an integral part of ranged classes, a front body to keep you away from the meleeers as you are very squishy in close quarters. You can be completely fine just bringing in DPS because you have all the safety with an epic that knocks the enemy back every single time and it resets every single turn. So what I think needs to change is that rank 5, instead of the knockback, it should be weapon power reduction. In the same thing as some of the A tiers, rank 3 of Overwatch and rank 3 of Ready Spell should be a minus 25% accuracy reduction, and then the rank 4 should be a minus 50% accuracy reduction. And here's the thing. Some people might complain that, oh, if you remove the knockback aspect, then Overwatch and Ready Spell are going to be bad. And I completely disagree. Sure, it won't be Z tier anymore, but it's still going to be absolutely an S tier epic. Because of the second main problem that Overwatch and Ready Spell have, it procs chains. The enemy AI will almost always walk up to you, triggering your Overwatch and or your Ready Spell, which procs a chaining epic, and all of a sudden, you've dealt 3,000 collective damage without even targeting the enemy. Being able to wipe boards without even attacking is terrible design. Now, to be fair, as I talked about with some of the chaining epics, if you nerf the damage of them, at least at the lower ranks, then yeah, I can agree that it might even be a little bit weaker, maybe pushing these towards A tier. I don't really think that's going to happen, but maybe it will. Okay, but yeah, let's put these back in S tier. Next one is going to be Follow Through. Follow Through is essentially just a better version of Relentless. It does the same amount of damage as the chaining epics, but it always procs and has priority, for some reason, priority over every other epic except for maybe First Strike. I'm really not a fan of removing stats, powers, or epics from currently implemented gear. However, I'm going to make an exception for Follow Through. I think Follow Through should be exclusively a Buccaneer epic. Putting it onto the Cerberus collar, massive L, and I think it should be removed. Giving Follow Through and DoubleTap to every class is one of the few reasons why Hybrid is so overpowered. Swashbucklers are not designed to chain, which is why their main hits do not have a glancing blow effect. But when you give them a charm that guarantees a second hit, now they can chain so much more reliably. I think Follow Through should only be accessible from a smashy slashy weapon like the Axe of the Minotaur Lord, or someone from like Bellator has a team-wide grant of it, and that's completely fine with me too, because at least he's a pack companion. I mean, you have to spend like 50,000 crowns on average to just maybe get him, so I think giving him Follow Through is completely fine. And then of course, last thing, lower the damage on Follow Through because it always procs. The fact that it does the same amount of damage while also being guaranteed to proc, at least Relentless, it's a 35% chance, but this is a 100% chance. I don't really understand it. Okay, next epic I'm going to be talking about is Bladestorm. And same thing as Relentless, when I say Bladestorm, I'm also talking about DoubleTap and I'm also talking about Mojo Rising. And to make it simple, as I called these ones the chaining epics, I'm going to call these ones the crit epics, since that's the main way that they trigger in combat. Originally, these epics were actually pretty bad. They were probably like here originally. They used to only trigger if you dealt the finishing blow to an enemy. Eventually, KI changed it so that these epics also proc off of a critical strike, putting it probably around A tier, maybe S tier, which honestly, to be honest with you, I think that's fine. However, there's 3 problems with these epics and why I put it in specifically Z tier. The first is the rank 5 variation. On the epic card, it shows a plus 25, which at a glance might just mean you get 25 more weapon power per proc. Not too crazy. However, it actually provides 25% of your base weapon power. Meaning, if you have, let's say, Bladestorm 5, if you land the Bladestorm all 3 times in your chain, you gain a ton of weapon power. you're essentially being granted the weapon power of a hide for all of your attacks. You can claim that this is only true if you can get crit consistently, but that's where the second problem comes. Getting a crit has never been so easy in 2026. Whether it's powers like Deadly Shadow Dance for Swashbucklers, or Clasp of Demigodly Power, epics like Turn the Tide 5, which I'll talk about more in just a little bit, or just any of the Arc 2 gear providing the stat your class needs. Like, let me show you, let me go back to my Witch Doctor, right? Will. It's kind of crazy, right? So right now I have 119 will. I'm already over the 100 cap, which is what was originally added. I think this is ridiculous. What I think that they can do is that, you see how this says every 5 points of will adds 1% damage to spooky and staffy attacks? Maybe this should be higher. Maybe like every 7 points, maybe every 8 points to make it a little bit more fair, which is another thing that they can start doing with these types of gear that offer a lot of will, is that you can make it, you can give more will, but you can lower the actual value of it. I think that'll be a little bit more of a fair trade. But as it stands right now, it's just so ridiculous how easy it is to crit now. And because these crit epics, they trigger if your attack is a crit. It's 100% chance. If you crit, you're going to proc Bladestorm, you're going to proc DoubleTap, you're going to proc Mojo Rising. I unironically think that the crit epics are better than the actual chaining epic ones. This is ridiculous. This should not be the case. These are designed to be the main damage dealer. This is more supposed to be utility. The fact that this does more damage, or does actually the same damage, more reliable to proc because of how easy it is to crit now, and it provides more utility, this is literally just better than this. When people tell me, or when people ask, hey, what epic should I get on my pet for my Buccaneer? I don't tell them Relentless, I tell them Bladestorm. And the reason why is because this is just more valuable than this now. I don't get it. And then finally, the third problem, which is the least important, is that the rank 1 and rank 2 variations are super strong, while the 3, 4, and, well actually, excuse me, just the 3 and 4 variations are pretty useless. Kind of the same thing as a lot of these A tier epics here. So for the crit epics, I think the rank 1 and rank 2 variations should do less damage. It normalizes back at rank 3, and then rank 4 should provide the weapon power bonus, but I think instead of 25%, which is kind of ridiculous, I think it should be 10%. What does this mean for rank 5 though? Rank 5, this might be kind of crazy, but I think it'd be really fun, as we currently don't have an infinitely scaling epic yet. I think for rank 5, each time the crit epic procs, you gain weapon power that stays and stacks until the end of combat. Maybe like 5% weapon power per proc. So what's going to be kind of useful is that rank 4 would be more useful for shorter fights because you just gain the 10% weapon power per turn, and then the rank 5 is better for longer drawn out fights, because an Agrippa Drop Gauntlet is an example of this, where they have multiple, I guess, waves of enemies, so rank 5 of Bladestorm would be a lot more useful for that. Okay, next one is Turn the Tide. Now, Turn the Tide in itself probably is like A tier. I actually don't think it's that big of a deal. It's specifically Turn the Tide 5. Pretty much only viable on Buccaneers, as let's say rank 4 of Turn the Tide gives you strength. No class really use strength except for Buccaneer, and I guess maybe melee privateers, but that's really it. The problem with Turn the Tide 5 is the critical that it provides. Buccaneer is a class that is very reliant on critting so that they can proc their chains. Specifically, most Buccaneers are going to have Bladestorm 5 as well. So if you get the crit, then you're going to be able to get the extra weapon power bonus. Tide 5 giving 25% critical strike chance is super nice for this win condition. And then if you pair this up with the broken gambit that is Clasp of Demigodly Power, well, now you're basically critting every single tack. You become a one-man wrecking crew, stat checking anyone that comes in your way, because also Turn the Tide, if you pair this with Elusive, and I'll talk about this in a second, you just gain such an influx of stats. This is why, like, a lot of people complain about, oh, well, Buccaneer doesn't really have any good companions. I don't think it matters. The fact that you can do this much damage, I always like to bring up this picture of how crazy your stats can be when you have Clasp of Demigodly Power, Bladestorm 5, and Turn the Tide 5. You don't need companions anymore. You can do all the damage yourself. And I know some people might say, well, you're going to be at half health. Who cares? You can have Albino, who gives you a damage reduction. You can use Ramming Speed, which gives you damage reduction. So you're not really at half health. You're just taking a lot less damage. And even then, enemies are not going to be able to hit you because you're over 200 dodge. You're never going to miss because you're over 200 accuracy. And you're going to be one-shotting everything because you're 900 weapon power. It's absolutely ridiculous. And again, the other issue, which I very briefly brought up with Elusive, is that both Turn the Tide and Elusive trigger simultaneously. I don't think this should be the case. They are the quintessential fight or flight epics. Once you are knocked down to half health, you either fight to the death with Turn the Tide, or you retreat and heal up with Elusive. The fact that you receive both is just stupid. You gain all the extra great stats, the weapon power, the accuracy, the crit chance, the strength with Turn the Tide, even dodge now with Turn the Tide, but then you also gain extra dodge and extra movement with Elusive. It's just stupid to me. So what I think is that the higher rank you have, that's the only one that procs. And if you have the same rank, then either it's just random, or it chooses it based off of the specific class that you are or something. Maybe if you are a swashbuckler, you gain Elusive. If you're a musketeer, you gain Elusive. If you're a witch doctor, you gain Elusive. If you're a privateer, you gain Elusive. And then specifically Turn the Tide, which was designed to only be a buccaneer epic, then you would only get Turn the Tide. So let's say you have Turn the Tide 3 and Elusive 3. Every class except Buccaneer would have Elusive proc, and then Turn the Tide would only be proccing on Buccaneers. That's my opinion. Every other rank of Turn the Tide is probably fine. I'd probably put it A tier if it was just Turn the Tide 4, but Tide 5 offering crit completely breaks the class. I think giving damage reduction at rank 5 is a healthier solution. Alright, one more is... actually two more. Next one is Witch Hunter. Witch Hunter is completely stupid. I think this is one of the dumbest epics in the entire game. I think it's close to Sneaky Sneaky as one of the dumbest epics. It is literally intuition. Let me put it here. It's literally intuition, but just better. It does more damage, provides more utility, and for some ridiculous reason, it procs off of spell power, which means if you have Old Scratch, you can do insane amounts of damage. I'll show a clip here. I can one-shot enemies with one Witch Hunter. I don't understand why it's a thing. The reason why Mormo is so good right now on Witch Doctors is because of Witch Hunter 3. It's not really Mormo in the fact that he can make melee enemies do magic attacks. I think that part is cool, and they can actually make more Witch Doctor epics like Intuition, for example, or Retribution a little bit more valuable. The problem is Witch Hunter. I don't know why it's in the game. I don't know why it's so overpowered. I think, and I might be wrong on this, but I think it was originally designed to be a melee answer to Witch Doctors, kind of like how we have Retaliation. I think this is supposed to be the Witch Doctor version of Retaliation. But of course, because of Clandestine Trainers, Arc 1.5 garbage that we have, they gave it to every class and made it universal, so now it's just completely broken. So what I think, they need to heavily lower the damage of Witch Hunter, and it should never, ever, ever scale with spell power. Honestly, maybe just making it default damage. Like, it just has a baseline damage of like 200 or something at max level would probably be better. Like maybe 66% of your weapon power or something. But right now, it's just ridiculous. I hate it, and I want it to be removed from the game. Honestly, I do want it to be removed from the game, because there's no point in ever playing Intuition when you have Witch Hunter. It's just ridiculous. I know they're not going to remove it, just like they're never going to remove Sneaky Sneaky, but, you know, it is what it is. Right now, it's a Z tier, and I think they have to get rid of it. Okay. Witch Hunter rant over. Last epic. Explosive Decoy. Honestly, I'm going to do this. I'm going to add a row above, and I am going to put this fully black, and I'm going to make this Explosive Decoy tier. You can't even see it, whatever. Let me fix that. Let's do pink. Okay. Yep. Where's it at? Explosive Decoy. All right. Decoy is one of the most ridiculous epics I've ever seen. I was just talking about how Witch Hunter and Sneaky Sneaky need to be removed. This epic is just ridiculous. It's absolutely insane. If you don't believe me, I'll show this video of Rookie Cookie beating the new Obsidian Chokaka boss with no gear and 1 health. Theoretically, this should be impossible. But because Explosive Decoy resets every single turn, this is possible. I have no idea why this is in the game. It single-handedly made Musketeer the best class in PvP when it wasn't close to begin with prior to the Trianon update. I think it needs to be banned in PvP, not by the community, but by KingsIsle themselves. Like, actually add a no PvP tag, similar to how they did, let me go back to Pirate, similar to what they did with Old Scratch, right? You have Mojo, has no PvP, they need to add that exact same label, that same flag with Explosive Decoy for PvP, and then for PvE, it should only trigger once. I have no clue what is taking the developers so long to make these changes. All right, I graded everything. Let me zoom out a little bit. Okay, I've graded everything. Here's a big question. What if nothing gets changed? What if the devs choose to keep going with what they're doing and ignoring balancing altogether? Well, the more updates we add into the game, the more power creep we will have. As long as these epics remain in the state they currently are in, the next epic will be just as broken because the devs have to continuously think outside the box of, how can I make this new epic viable? If you don't believe me, I have 3 examples. I already just did one, Explosive Decoy. I've literally put in its own tier because, and again, here's the problem with it, is that because you don't nerf Overwatch 5, the knockback epic, you have to make something that is just as valuable as Overwatch 5. So the next epic now invalidates Musketeers' other main thematic weakness, which is that they, even if, let's say, they proc Overwatch and it doesn't knock them back, or let's say the enemy is hidden, so they don't get, so the Overwatch 5 itself doesn't proc, they still can't die because of Decoy. Because that's the other counter, right? It's like, okay, well, you can invalidate Buccaneers' charges, but Swashbucklers can still hide and attack you and be able to kill you. That's their thematic weakness. But because of Explosive Decoy, they don't die to Swashbucklers anymore either. They literally have no counter, there's no counterplay to Musketeers now. They're just completely broken. Another example is the Mictlan's Recalcitrance. I think I'm saying that correctly. At half health, you auto-heal back to full. Like, what? But to be fair, I don't think it's that overpowered, but that's only because these epics right here are more overpowered than it. If you nerf these epics, then Mictlan's Recalcitrance becomes the next Z tier epic that's in the list. Right now, I think it's probably like S tier, but if you nerf these ones, then that just becomes the next broken thing. And the third epic is from the most recent companion, Emil Zapata. In my epic video, I mentioned that if they were planning on releasing rank 6 epics, are we gonna get rank 6 epics? What could be better than Ready Spell 5? A guaranteed crit and it stuns them instead of knocking them back? And literally a month later, there's an epic that is a guaranteed super strike, and although it doesn't stun, I was pretty close on what I was predicting it to be. How did I know this was going to happen? Because this is what power creep is. I've seen it in so many other games. Power creep is not fun. It makes the gameplay so much more boring. And the longer we keep epics in S and in Z tier, right, we keep these epics like this, the more we are going to get a bunch of broken garbage that should have never been put into the game. Before I end this video, I want to add a few more things. You might ask why I make such a big deal out of the broken stuff like epics. Well, 1, nobody else does it, so it's free content. 2, you might have not figured it out yet, but the gameplay of Pirate is what I find the most appealing. Some people play Pirate and Wiz for the story and the lore, others maybe for the art, and some, like myself, play because of the combat mechanics. I really think there's so many layers, so many permutations that you can do with Pirate's current combat system, and I want to see it happen. It just can't really come into fruition if there's a bunch of broken stuff that's currently in the game. And the third reason, which is the most objective, I think the gameplay is the one pillar of Pirate that is the easiest to fix. I'm gonna be honest, I'm completely checked out of Pirate's story. Valencia Part 2's rushed ending was already horrible, destroying Kane and all the beauty that he could have had, all the beauty and the potential, but every episode preceding it has made any hopes of the story being revived a pipe dream. I mean, maybe the next story update, which I actually do think will be done much better than Trianon, can steer the story to a better state, but I'm not betting on it. And then for art, well, it's very dependent on budget, and I don't see Pirate getting a budget large enough for multiple new zones anytime soon, so expect more reused assets from Wiz. The combat system, on the other hand, a lot of what I proposed are numerical changes. This doesn't require a budget to change. To be honest, and maybe I'm coping on this, a lot of these changes can be done within a minute. It's just going into the files and changing the numbers themselves. That's not too much to ask. It's just whether or not the developers believe what I'm saying makes any logical sense and they actually care about the longevity of the game. Alright, I'm done. If you like this video, leave a comment. If this video does well, I might do another one because although I'm harsh on epics and some are completely outrageous, it's not the only problem with Pirate combat system. I think companions and powers also contribute to this issue. So if you like this video, I might make another video on companions because there are absolutely some companions that cause a lot of problems, and I think there's one companion in particular that has really set the precedent for epics as a whole as to why they're so broken. And I really want to see that particular companion being nerfed to the ground, but probably not going to happen. But whatever, I'm all done. Alright, all that being said, I will see you all later.